Good evening to you, Govan. So these, of course, relate to who donated to Cyril Ramaphosa's campaign to become president of the ANC. Tell us more about the EFF's argument and why they said it was so crucial to find what was in that.
So the EFF went to court on the back of the report by the public protector, Busisiwe Mkhwebane, into the CR17 bank statements. And interestingly enough, that report by the public protector was declared invalid by the High Court. She went to the Constitutional Court to appeal that, and she lost there as well, where the Con Court found that there were material factual flaws in her report and also found it to be invalid. And key to that report were the bank statements of the CR17 campaign, which were filed by the public protector, and the Financial Intelligence Center contends that they were filed unlawfully by the public protector, and they were later sealed by Deputy Judge President of the High Court, Ledwaba, who said that the confidentiality of the third parties in those bank statements warranted their sealing. So today we had the judgment which said that the EFF had failed to prove that it would be in the private or public good for those bank statements to be unsealed, while the confidentiality of the third parties and those in the statements remained sufficient reason for them to remain sealed. And essentially the EFF went to court because it contended that the people who donated money to the CR17 campaign were somehow receiving benefits through state contracts, and that is the reason they gave why they believe the statement should be unsealed. But of course the High Court had found that there was no basis in law for them to request that, and the judge actually found that he couldn't find the right which entitled them to have these documents unsealed.
All right, so ultimately the right of those donors to have their donations kept private trumped the EFF's argument, am I correct?
Yes, that's correct, Sally. And remember that the EFF also made this application without providing evidence where they said their suspicions had been proven. This centers on whether or not the people who donated to the president's ANC campaign are now getting some sort of kickback by doing work for the state. And even in their application to the High Court, there was no such evidence presented to the court. And that is, I believe, the failure of the EFF to prove the public or private good, while at the same time the confidentiality of the donors was found to also be important enough for the records to remain sealed.
Of course, there has been quite a strong argument, you know, it's something we talk about a lot, is it like basically the principle of transparency around any donation. Did that come into play at all in the EFF's argument?
Not necessarily in the EFF argument, but Amabungane did make an interesting argument to the Constitutional Court, challenging the validity of the Executive Ethics Code. And in that regard, the Constitutional Court not dismissing Amabungane entirely, instead pointing them back to the High Court where that matter could be heard. But in terms of the EFF and the public interest, there is an important definition or discernment made by the judge in the judgment, saying that there's a difference between the public interest and information that the public find interesting. And of course, when you analyze that, you also have to consider which public it is, which the information would be presented to, and the factors that are at play when deciding between those two. And based on that elaboration, which is quite technical, the judge found that the EFF had failed to prove that it would be in the public interest for these CR17 bank statements to be unsealed.
So has the EFF responded? Are they able to appeal? Is that a thing they're considering?
At the moment, we haven't seen any official statement from the party responding to their application being dismissed with costs, but we did see a brief comment from the EFF's leader, Julius Malema, on social media, where he said that to say he was disappointed would be an understatement, but as yet no intention or no indication that they intend to appeal this judgment.
Thank you so much. Govan Whittles, that's our reporter there, reporting on the news that those who donated to the ANC president's campaign within the party to become president, those documents will remain sealed.